Well, might as well get around to it. Columns. Otherwise known as Sega's answer to Tetris, Columns was a game where jewels would fall from the sky and you'd have to clear them by matching three of a kind in either a vertical column, a horizontal row, or a diagonal line. Of course, the limit here is that these jewels always comes in columns of 3, and you can only shift the order in which the jewels appear to match up with the rest. There are no rotating clockwise or counterclockwise or any of that stuff. You cycle the jewel order in your columns and work with that. Columns originally started life as an arcade game, but eventually made its way over to Sega's various home consoles of the time, such as the Master System, the Mega Drive, and today's subject matter, the Game Gear. Hey, did you know that Columns was originally the pack-in game for the Game Gear before eventually being replaced with Sonic the Hedgehog 2? Sorta lends credence to Sega's intent on positioning Columns as a Tetris counterpoint. Anyway, this Game Gear version of Columns features two main modes of play. Original mode, which is basically the arcade mode, but with somewhat more options and no tutorial, and Flash mode, where the main goal is to clear the flashing gemstone. You know, like in that Tetris 2 game, except with only one flashing thing, rather than 3, and no bombs. Columns is one of those puzzle games where it really doesn't matter where you play it, because if you play one version of Columns, you've pretty much played them all. Any differences between the various parts of Columns, the first game at least, is generally superficial, and the core gameplay is generally the same across the board. On its own, Columns bears a concept that is straightforward and easy to grasp. You match 3 of a kind of gems and whatever. The only thing you can't do is rotate. That's your only real restriction. You could shift around the order of the blocks, but you can't rotate them. It should feel limiting, but it works, and it does add tension when the columns are falling at great speeds. Your well is piling up, and you're desperately trying to get that one move in that'll save your hide from the clutches of oversaturation. The visuals of Columns are adequate, not quite the most mind-blowing thing you'll find on the Game Gear, but at the very least the playfield is large enough to be visible, the various gems are somewhat distinguishable, but can be altered in appearance to resemble fruit or blocks or other things, which is a nice bit of customization, and there's a nice rendering of a small town in the background with the sky slowly transitioning from day to night as you progress to higher levels of difficulty. It's a nice little detail and certainly makes for a visually appealing display, rather than the Master System's barren black void of space. Columns offers 3 background tunes that you could choose to play during gameplay, conveniently labeled A, B, and C. Because what else are you going to call them? Clothos, Lathyrus, and Syphilis? Those names are too long, they won't fit the screen. Just keep it A, B, and C and everyone's happy. So you got some nice tunes here, generally thematic and slower paced, which is almost befitting of the overall gameplay. Sound effects are eerie sounding with some ear-grating sound effects, but otherwise not too shabby. It's fine. Overall, Columns on the Game Gear is not half bad. A perfectly acceptable little puzzle game on the go that is easy to grasp, difficult to master, and a decent little time killer. Out of the various versions of Columns out there, this is probably my favorite version of the bunch. It's nice, simple, something you could take on the go, yes, even with the Game Gear that's chunky and takes 500 batteries to power for 1 hour, it's something you could take on the go. All in all, a solid puzzler. Fairly cheap, easy to find. Why not?